etc. And here is, I call it a projector because I'm old fashioned. Yeah. Thank you. It's a projector that projects onto the floor. Say the kids are dancing in a forest. There'll be a forest on the floor. If they're acting breath, it'll be appropriate. So we're not going to do it today, but just so you know that everybody here has done a phenomenal job. I will. Darling, you're the expert. Okay. Those are the days. We need to make, where do you want the people? Iran? You're right. Okay, we've got the girls first. יהיו בשקט גם שם. הבנות שרוקדות. איזה אסונות.
So, welcome everybody. We're going to start with a little dance that a group of our children in the afternoon program made for the Pestichalva. And they're very exciting to show it to you because they use this room to film and also to do the rehearsal.
We're building the tension intentionally.
فاتن نبات كما سألعتني أنا أدخ كشا أخرى بالباب أما يسخها ما لبتخي يخصصي كمس واو لا سبحان الاسمنو لا تسمع ولا خير أني تخاف أني أتسين أتالي بنيان فبوتي أنا مش الخوتكم نادي أصلا يوت أتنين هذا كيف شيء ساكن مراد لا يزمع لي كوس بيشير
אני בא, כמו שערה, מביט לפחד בעיניים, לא חושב פעמיים, גם אם נופל, ושוב נופל, בסוף על הרגליים, אם לא על הידיים, אף פעם לא אפסיק. להריץ, לצעוד עם הכריש הכי גדול, אתה הכל יכול, זה הזמן לקפוץ. להגיע, אל תפחד, קצת להזיע, בוא ותגלה מי אתה יכול להיות. ואם אתה רוצה להשפיע ולהיות גיבור שמוכיח שיש על מי לסמוך, זה הזמן לקפוץ. לך יותר כי יש בך יותר. קפוץ, 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 קפוץ. זה הזמן לקפוץ. להגיע, אל תפחד, קצת להזיע, בוא ותגלה מי אתה יכול להיות. ואם אתה רוצה להשפיע, להיות גיבור שמוכיח שיש על מי לסמוך, שיש על מי לסמוך, זה הזמן לקפוץ.
תודה רבה בנות.
Okay. One sec, because it's stuck together. I'm going to try and get through this without shaming myself. No, it's okay. Thank you. Okay. 2.5 years ago, every parent's nightmare became our reality when Dr. Daniel Kammerman, was cycling on his way to work at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan when he was hit by a bus. Daniel didn't survive except in our thoughts every single waking hour. I always knew he had a special wisdom from when he was tiny Indeed, as one lovely Welsh lady declared, well, dear, he was born old. And he went on to become a brilliant student, an accomplished musician, a caring doctor, and an amazing father. Always ready to put everything into perspective in our lives, never pontificating, just by being there. I was so proud of everything he was, knew he was special, yet until I began to hear his patients and fellow physicians write and speak about him, even I had no idea to the extent of his influence on others. I don't want to just talk about Daniel, though. I want to explain why he was so special and why, rather than wallowing in loss, we had to find a way for Daniel to continue to influence others to fulfill their dreams. Daniel brought out the best in everyone by example. He was undoubtedly the best big brother that Gideon and Rachel could have wished for. Gideon said of his big brother, he was the best of us, and I changed it to, he was the best in us. For those first ghastly moments, from those first ghastly moments, I was determined that Daniel would not be forgotten in the natural way of time, and I began to think about his special qualities. This is Eli, who just managed to fly in an hour ago or land an hour ago, and he's been an amazing friend. Okay, sorry. He would listen rather than expound, a rare quality in this day and age. As a physician, a pediatrician, he used the same listening powers to understand what his patients needed rather than declare his greater medical knowledge. His special affinity to children with special needs, children with huge potential that so often missed, was legend. He knew how to love and be loved, accepting both with equal generosity. His arms were ever open to those who needed a hug or just wanted a welcome. In school, in Carmel College, he excelled, yet everyone loved him and turned to him for advice because he was never in competition with anyone else, concentrating too hard on being the best person he could be. Perhaps Daniel's most endearing quality was his ability to be silly, his sense of fun, a wonderfully simple sense of humor that was so contagious it made even passers-by laugh. His young patients loved his Mickey Mouse ties. No white coats for him. As Rachel reminded me, one of Daniel's greatest talents was that of a champion grape stuffer. True. The competition involved stuffing as many grapes as possible in one's mouth without squashing them. And Daniel won each time, leaving his giggling siblings far behind. So you see, Daniel's greatest qualities are those of Shalva too. His ability to see the potential butterfly in everyone he met. The lesson I learned 2 years ago is that when the chips are down, nothing really matters except those you love and love you in return. We can change our world by caring about others, being loyal to our principles, by demanding justice, and most importantly, by being the best person we can be. Daniel was. The path to creating Dr. Dan's Room, the name chosen by Rachel, right here in Shalva, was obvious. After Tzvi and my first meeting with Avi and the wonderful Gaby, who cannot be here today because unfortunately her husband is unwell, not bad, but unwell, I knew this was the place that Daniel would have chosen. Working through a million plans with Liron and Gaby, Shalva became the place I could turn the family's grief into hope, into something that Daniel would have loved. And gradually the other family members recognized that we could create a truly magnificent studio for the performing arts that would lead to dozens of other opportunities for the young people who will enjoy and benefit from it. We wanted a place where Daniel's wife Karen and children Joshua and Callie, when they come all the way from Manhattan, will be proud that their daddy is remembered in such a beautiful way. So Kalman, Malky, Avi, Gabby, Leon, Alex, indeed the entire Shalva family, all of us in Daniel's family, too numerous to mention, apart obviously from Daniel's daddy who's standing next to me. Those who know and those you will get to know want to thank you for giving us a reason to smile. What you've created here in Shalva is a different world, a world of hope and joy, a world where my grandson Sammy would feel at home. I've grown to love you. And by the way, you won't get rid of me that fast. I'm here to stay. Would you like to say a couple of words?
A few words. Daniel lived for and loved young people. Daniel fought all his working life for young people. The story of him fighting for a new heart for a 14-year-old boy is quite unbelievable. And the way he fought all the way along, after being turned down for various reasons, he would not give up. This is Daniel, Dr. Daniel Kammerman at his very, very best. And I know it's a very trite thing to say, but had he been here now and seen what has transpired here and how young people are, which is what he lived for, and which is in a way what he died for, because he was on his way to minister to young people. What he lived for was the improvement of young people's lives, from the beginning of their lives almost to their middle age. And to see these young people, these youngsters, this afternoon, doing whatever they can to create something new, and the people who are behind them, who actually taught them what they taught them, and the vision that came from Kalman and Malky, Malky and Kalman actually, is quite remarkable. And to have done this, and for the people who have donated to make this room possible, I want to give my absolute thanks. It's the most wonderful thing that you have done here and to have achieved here. The other parts of Daniel that actually make this room so relevant is his wonderful support of the arts. He, as Sheila said, was a most accomplished musician. And for him to see all this stuff here, and to see the band, and to see the different instruments that have been donated in his name, would be absolutely magnificent for him. And he wasn't a very good dancer, but I'm sure to see, people dancing, again, is wonderful. As an actor, he was brilliant. He used to perform in Gilbert and Sullivan. The English people here will understand what kind of drama this is. But it's poking fun, all the time poking fun. And he loved poking fun at the establishment and at people. And he poked them, as he did with his heart. This heart, he poked them very hard, so they reacted to him and gave this young lad his heart. And one of the things that struck me was the day that Daniel entered the hospital with his life gone was the day that that young man left the hospital with a new heart, and he still has a new heart, and as I understand it, he's still going strong. So it all kind of comes together. There's no midrash about this. I'm sure there isn't. We could almost create a midrash about Daniel. And people say, well, why did he die so young? And what Daniel achieved in his short life was more than most people achieve at Meav Esrim. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of what he did. I'm so proud of what he achieved. And I'm so proud of what Sheila has helped to create in his name. I don't think there's anything more for me to say. I'm starving as well. So I think that's me done.
Kalman, it's your turn. Please, please, please.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Philip. And thank you, Zvi, for doing so much. And I was here in the early days, and your, as we say in Yiddish, your bren, the fire that was in you to make this happen, was absolutely, is what in large measure made this happen. Thank you to each and every one of you for making this possible. And although I didn't know and have the privilege of knowing Philip, I have gotten to know him through very many dear mutual friends, largely living in the Upper East Side of New York, and one by one, very often not knowing that we're doing anything at Shalva for Philip's memory, but excuse me, I apologize. Forgive me. So, Daniel's name came up in conversation, in various conversations, and as when I shared with them that we're actually doing something at Shalva, they were very moved. And whatever they were saying was in superlatives that these guys don't often talk in, but clearly the respect they had for Daniel was immense. Obviously, no one wants to build something good out of misfortune, out of tragedy, but that is the story of Shalva, that out of challenges that unexpectedly came up in life, Shalva was created and has gone far beyond anything my wife and I ever had in mind when we created it 32 years ago with 5 children in one rented apartment and one after-school program. Today, it's probably the largest such center in the world, serving 1,000 people every day from birth all the way through adulthood. Our goal at Shalva is to enable youngsters with disabilities. We don't see those disabilities, we only see abilities and possibilities, and we measure people with their yardstick. So often people, with healthy people, with people who are facing challenges, measure the other with their yardstick. And that's an impossible task because it's a formula for frustration. Because when you care for your child, or certainly a child with disabilities, when he does this much, it might be for somebody else winning a gold medal in the 100-meter race. So if we measure him with the wrong yardstick, it's going to cause a lot of disappointment, frustration, and when we do somehow manage to get through our heads and into our hearts that we view a person and measure him with what we can possibly do for him. When these young girls danced, I was thinking how much effort went into getting them to do what they could do. And what you don't know is the girl on the far right is 95% deaf. And yet here she was dancing to music that probably she didn't even hear. So it's really quite incredible. You may have heard this